Hello Tesla fans. I'm here in my garage with my brand new Teslarini that I just bought. Not really. I am in my garage though. I'm in the Model S right now. So, some old news that I've been thinking about and finally doing a video about is Autopilot 2. This was kind of a big surprise for me. I didn't think the hardware... So first of all, the announcement, if you didn't know, is that all Teslas now are being built with Autopilot 2.0 hardware. Just like they did a year or so ago, or was it 2 years ago? They started building all the Teslas with the current hardware before they released Autopilot. Now they're doing that, but with the hardware capable of Autopilot 2.0. And that hardware suite consists of updated ultrasonics. So there aren't more ultrasonics, but they're updated. Apparently they can, they have twice the range now as the previous ones. So those are surrounding the car. And then there's still the radar in the front of the car, which, as far as I know, is the same in terms of hardware. And then the camera up top here is now a triple camera. There's a narrow long distance camera. There's a normal width medium camera, and then there's the ultra wide camera. So all three are up there. And then there are two cameras on each side. One is in the pillar here, and that one faces forward, slightly forward anyway, faces out and a little bit forward. And then there's one on the side of the front, inside the Tesla emblem on the side, and that faces sideways and backwards. And then there's the rear view camera, which has been there before, but now it's an updated one, and I think it has a wider view than previously, or higher optics or something like that. Let's see, is that it? Oh, and then also the computer system dedicated to analyzing all that input is updated, and it's now an NVIDIA basically AI unit that somehow is a neural network or something like that. It's kind of beyond me, but it's sort of a supercomputer now that comes in and to analyze all that data in real time. So every new Tesla now is going to have that, whether it is activated or not. And so, I mean, it's not a surprise that this actually happened, but it is a little bit of a surprise this early. I thought this was probably going to be like next summer or something like that, sort of closer to when Model 3 is going to come out, and that would sort of be the big thing, is like Model 3 is going to have this, and oh, by the way, all the other cars are going to have it too. So obviously they've been developing at a fast pace the Autopilot program, which is awesome. The current Autopilot is really great for what it's intended for, but the next level is really going to be crazy. There is a demonstration video on Tesla's website where it shows a Model X equipped with the hardware, as well as I don't know, some alpha version of the software or something like that, of Autopilot 2 software, and it goes from a house all the way to Tesla's headquarters in Palo Alto. And it does it there. It must be a weekend because there's not much traffic anywhere. But it does it basically hands-free. There is a person in the driver's seat, but his hands are kind of like this the entire time. And it's pretty cool. It shows like the views from some of the different cameras and sort of showing what the car sees. And so it drops this person off at Tesla's headquarters. He walks into the building, and then the car drives around the parking lot until it finds a parking spot, which the only one that was available, I mean, I'm sure they made it that way, but The one that was available was a parallel parking spot, and then it parallel parked itself in there. So pretty cool. So it was a pretty cool demonstration. And obviously it was somewhat staged. The intersections that it did were very, they were clearly marked. It was great weather, excellent visibility, not very many cars. But in Tesla's write-up on its website about this future version, it claims that it can do it in almost any weather. So not all weather, but most weather conditions. And in traffic scenarios, congested freeways, on-ramps, off-ramps, parking lots. Pretty big claims. And I guess, they're saying that the hardware that they put in is adequate for the job. And basically it's a software algorithm. So the car can see and detect everything that it needs to. It's just a matter of processing that in an intelligent way. Which does bring me to my first question, which is what happened to redundancy? When Musk had talked about full autonomy back in the day, I guess he always mentioned that the current one is not fully autonomous, and you have to have complete redundancy within the vehicle so that you can have a fail-safe operation. In other words, like a primary system can fail, but the car can still maneuver itself either to a safe place or continue all the way to its destination. So I thought that meant like duplicate cameras and stuff. And that's not the case. There aren't duplicate cameras. There are 8 though, and they do overlap quite a bit. So obviously there's 3 in the front, and there's high overlap there. And then the wide angle one does overlap a little bit with the forward facing side camera in the pillar. And obviously, of course, the pillar side camera also overlaps with the one in the decal on the side, facing slightly backwards. And then the rear wide angle backup camera overlaps with the rear facing side cameras. So there is overlap, and I guess maybe it could limp along its way if one of those cameras failed for whatever reason. Now, I guess the one spot that has the least redundancy is the rear view camera, but that is also the least useful because most of the time the car is going forward. Actually, I was just going to say that maybe the car couldn't park itself if that wasn't operational, but I don't actually know. Auto Park works now, and I don't know that it actually uses the rear view camera. I think it's just the ultrasonics, actually. So, anyway, but that was just a question of mine, and then of course that could also implicate the computing systems too. You have to have a fail-safe system in there, so we'll see how that plays out. I'm sure that's not something that they forgot about and were like, oh, maybe we should make this safe and autonomous and safe. All right. Next is weather. So I currently live in Michigan. We get a lot of snow. We get ice sometimes. And I have the cold weather package in my Model S, which means that I have a steering wheel heater, seat heaters in all the seats, heaters in the rear view mirrors, which actually I think that's a standard situation. And then I also have, so the bottom of the windshield is heated where the wiper blades touch. Let's see, is there something else? No, I think that's it. And you may, in my experience and other people's experience who live in cold climates, for example, Bjorn, I think his Model S also had the cold weather package. The defrosting ability of the windshield wiper heaters is subpar. It's not very effective. So my first thought was, with all these cameras, like, okay, it's hard for me to see in bad weather. And so what about when the car is like covered in ice or even snow? The camera has to be able to see. And if you look at the side pillars, there's a little bit of there's kind of like a gray cutout. I mean, it's flush, but there's like a gray area, slightly angled forward, and I suspect that's a heating element area to make sure that the camera's view path is unobstructed. And then I can't remember if it was Elon Musk or if I read it somewhere that all the cameras will have heaters to ensure that they don't get blocked. It's kind of a no-brainer. I mean, you can't claim full autonomy and then like have a couple snowflakes or some frost like cripple your car. Especially with all this business about the Tesla network, ride-sharing kind of stuff. Your car has to work even in cold climates. So we'll see how that works. Hopefully those heaters, the camera heaters would be a much more focused area. So maybe you could, heat those areas much more rapidly and to a higher degree than, the entire swath of the front of the windshield. So we'll see. It will be an interesting test. Also, I've had, even with my current radar and Autopilot suite, for some reason driving along in some cold areas with a little bit of snow pile up, I've had Autopilot tell me like it can't work because the sensors are not working or something like that. And then like you clear some ice off and it works. So I don't know, radar is supposed to work in ice and snow and fog. And so I don't know how that's going to play out. I guess the point is it'll be interesting to see the reliability of the sensor suite in various conditions. Because if it's the primary captain of the vehicle, they certainly have to be reliable. All right. So, who's going to use this? Well, it's going to be in every Tesla, so you don't have to use it even though you have it. By the way, it's also expensive. So, there's two levels. So, Autopilot Plus, which is basically the current Autopilot, but now with the new sensors, and they're calling that Autopilot Plus. That is $3,000 to activate on the new vehicle, and that activates the 3 front cameras. It also uses the back camera, so it's a 4-camera suite plus all the ultrasonics and the radar. And Tesla says that for $3,000 your car will do on-ramp to off-ramp driving. You can summon it to and from your garage, and it won't just go in a line. It'll actually come to you. And there may have been one other feature. Obviously, auto park will still work. But it won't do like city streets. It won't do more complex stuff. It won't drop you off and then go find a parking spot at a grocery store or something. So in order to get full autonomy, that is, I think it's another $5,000, because I think the total package is $8,000. I don't have it pulled up right now, but I'll have to check that. So anyway, there's 2 levels, depending on how much you want to fork out. And then those cost more. Each one of those costs $1,000 more if you activate it after you purchase the car. So we'll see if that pricing stays the same. Let's see, why was I doing that? Oh, so who's going to use this? Full autonomy is just such a new concept that it sort of has to play itself out in terms of who's going to use it. I would love to use it. I think Autopilot Plus will actually be pretty popular because until full autonomy has been around a while, I think it's going to take a while for people to trust it in more complex situations. But it's extremely nice to be able to sort of tune out, I guess, on the freeway. And you can't completely tune out right now on Autopilot, but with Autopilot Plus, it sounds like you can. So I think most people go on long trips eventually, so most people will probably use that. But the big thing with full autonomy is here's something I was thinking about it. You can take most middle class, or I guess I should say suburban families are 2-car families. So Either, let's assume it's a two-parent household. At least one parent is going to work somewhere in the morning, typically. And then either the other parent is also going to work, or the other parent is doing other stuff and also needs mobility. Now, the reason you need two cars, though, is because one car is parked at a workplace all day. At least that's the situation in mine. But with full autonomy, you could conceivably go from a two-car household, with a commute car and then like a family vehicle, down to just a family vehicle. And the way that would work, so in my situation, I could take the car to work, which is not too far. It's only 6 miles away. It's like 15 minutes, 15 to 20. And then when I'm at work, I can just tell the car to come back home. And then, if Lacey needs to go somewhere with Cordy, or, errands or whatever she needs to do, she can go all over the place. And then when I'm ready to leave work and come back home, can just summon the car to work, and it'll pick me up and it'll bring me back. So there would be some kinks that you'd have to work out, with scheduling and whatever. But the reason that's attractive is that instead of the cost of two cars, you could put all that money into a single car and get a nicer car, for example, a Model X or something like that. So there's a big potential of savings there. And then I guess if it doesn't work out to go to one car, again, there's the promise of the Tesla network, so that at least if you have to have two cars, and if one would normally be sitting at a workplace all day, then you can just tell it to join the Tesla network, and then it will generate money while you're at work. So it really kind of changes up vehicle planning in family situations and stuff. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Okay, so they are currently developing the software. So I think they're going to approach the rollout of the software, Autopilot 2, in the same way that they are now. In other words, from low complexity situations first, and then high complexity situations last. Autopilot 1 started with freeway driving and bumper-to-bumper traffic. That was sort of the main uses for it. So I think they're going to do something like that again. I think that, they'll introduce full autonomy on the freeway first. So when you're on a trip, you can just put it on the autopilot and let it do its thing, and you don't have to pay attention. And then that will go to ramp, and then, bumper-to-bumper traffic, obviously it'll be able to handle that. And then they'll sort of like weed their way down, like, okay, it'll go off the on-ramp, and then it will go, and I don't know what the divisions will be, but, some suburban driving and then city driving, and probably pretty early on it will be able to pick you up. You'll be able to summon it from the garage, and it'll pick you up wherever you are in your driveway. I think that'll come pretty soon, because one, it's private property, and generally driveways aren't as complicated as traffic situations. And possibly the last will either be urban settings or parking lots, because parking lots have pedestrians. Pedestrians are unpredictable, and they're harder to detect, I would imagine, than large vehicles. So, and they're also very soft, so you don't want to hit them. Some concerns. This isn't really a concern, but first I'll just ask this. What happened to 10 times the safety of human drivers? I think in the write-up of Autopilot, Musk mentions that it'll be at least twice as good as a human driver statistically. But I remember when he was touting this beforehand, he would always say that it needs to be validated to the level of like an order of magnitude safer, which would be 10 times safer. So I'm not sure where that requirement went. Okay, so some concerns. Basically, these are all situations. Okay, what about construction detours? Ow! Oh, just hit my funny bone, which, for those of you who know anatomy, is the ulnar nerve. Okay. Ugh. All right, construction detours. What if there's a flag man? Like, you know, how's that going to work? If the police pulls over the vehicle, what's an autonomous vehicle going to do? Vandalism. You know, if it's going slow and nobody's in the car, like, who's to stop it from being vandalized? The one thing about that, though, is there's cameras all over the cars, so it's going to know who did it. And then a big one for me is anticipating human crossings from sidewalks. Here we go. When I'm driving along in residential areas, you know, I'm always monitoring the sidewalks for, especially when there's cars parked along it. You know, to see a kid, the earlier I can be aware that there's a small person that I may not see behind a parked car, the better, because I can, you know, if they start moving towards the street, you know, even before they're even near the street, I can start slowing down. So, I mean, obviously, Autopilot software is completely programmable, and so maybe that intelligence can be factored in. But those kind of situations are where, you know, human drivers that are paying attention anyway excel, and the computers would have more difficulty because we can interpret what another human is going to do before they do it in some situations. So there are some situations it's a very interesting software engineering problem, but it's really, really exciting, and it's just amazing that Tesla is so far ahead of any other company doing this. I know Uber is testing stuff with Volvo, and they've got their Ford project in Pittsburgh, but it doesn't sound like they're ready for prime time. Google's been doing it forever, and that's kind of gone nowhere. Autopilot 2 was the veto factor for me for Model 3. So I have an early reservation, and if Autopilot 2 hardware was not going to be put into those vehicles yet, I wouldn't get a Model 3, because I didn't want to get another vehicle until fully autonomous hardware was available. And that was actually a prerequisite when I bought this car. I wasn't going to get a Tesla until the Autopilot stuff was available. And at the time, I kind of thought like that was going to be the definitive hardware. Turned out it wasn't, but that's okay. It's still useful. That was one of the things that, like, if that was not in place, I was not going to be going for a Model 3. It just wouldn't be worth it. And the Autopilot suite, including the current one, and even more so with Autopilot 2, is one of my favorite things about Tesla. It's one of the things that separates them from every other car maker. I mean, to me, it's kind of like supercharging. It's like, Tesla's, you know, uniquely advanced in this area and is just doing amazing things, and it makes the car like bigger, and I think they call it like value added. Like, the value of that whole package is just so much more awesome than, you know, the separate parts of those. So yeah, supercharging, Autopilot. Let's see, what would be the other thing? Because that's two things. I guess maybe the panel display. That's pretty crazy too. And definitely the looks. The way these vehicles look is just amazing. I'm still impressed with the Model S. Like when I'm walking towards it in the front, and just the way Franz like designed the appearance of it is amazing. And the back, like the view of the back of the Model S is just it's a very stunning and very attractive car. Anyway, that has nothing to do with Autopilot 2. As far as I know, that's all we know. I can't wait to learn more. I can't wait to see more demonstrations. I can't remember when Musk said, or if he did say when the new hardware suite, because all that hardware has to be validated so that it can do the features that the old hardware already can do. So that's going to take some time. So actually, initially, those cars are going to be a little bit more clunky than the current ones, but eventually they'll catch up and they'll exceed the current ones. So it's going to be really exciting. Anyway, this video is really long. I hope it's been interesting, though. I think this is a fascinating topic, and yeah, we'll see where it goes.